Hello everyone, I'm Nabil Murad. In this tutorial, I want to show you how to extract the first highest value in a list, the first highest score of a student, or the first highest sales transaction in a list of transactions. And what if I would like to extract the second highest, the third highest, and so on? We'll be talking about so many functions. We'll be talking about a VLookup function, a large function, an index function, a match function. We'll be talking about conditional formatting. Also, we'll be talking in this tutorial about inserting a control like the spin button. In this example, I do have a list of student names in column A, and I have a list of scores in column B. Well, I would like to find out who got the second highest score. It's Bautista, and Bautista got 95.9%. It's highlighted in the list, and the name is extracted in cell I1. But what I could do is that I could use the spin button, and instead of extracting the second highest score, when I click here, I can extract the third highest score for Legas, and if I go down, if I scroll down, it has been highlighted in my list. So these spin buttons are changing the text in my label from first to second to third and so on, and at the same time I'm extracting the name outside the list and I'm highlighting the corresponding record in the list. So let's see how we build our project from ground up in Excel. Before we go, I would like to draw your attention that in this tutorial I'm not talking about the very basic functionality of highlighting the top and bottom values. We know that in Excel we have a built-in functionality for conditional formatting and highlighting a certain number of values, whether from the top of a list or the bottom of a list. So, for example, I do have a list of months in this worksheet, and I do have a list of amounts. So if I would like to highlight the top two values, so I select my entire range, click on the down arrow for conditional formatting. We have 5 predefined rules. I go to the top and bottom rules, and from the flyout menu I select top 10 items. When I select top 10 items, I can change this number, and I can make it, let's say, I just want 2 values. So when I change this number to 2, then only the top 2 values are highlighted. I can do the same for the bottom values, and I can change the number to 3, 4, 5 or whatever. That's not the type of functionality I'm talking about in this tutorial. We are talking about a more advanced functionality in which you specify the nth value. Whether you are specifying the nth value as being a large value, the second large, the third large, the fourth large, or you are specifying the second small or the third smallest value in a list of values. Let's see how we build our project from ground up in Excel. So here is the same exact worksheet. You can download this exercise file and follow along by clicking on the link below the video. So in column A, I have a list of student names. In column B, I have the score for each student. And I would like to try extracting the second highest score. So I'm going to type in cell D3, 2. And I would like to extract the second highest score. How do I do this? In any cell I'll be typing a large function. What does the large function do? It will look at an entire range and it will extract the second highest number, equal large. And then when I hit tab, the large function requires 2 arguments, an array and a k, which means the second highest, the third highest, the fourth highest, and so on. So I'll be selecting my array starting from cell B2, and then I hit Shift Control down arrow, and then I want to jump back to the top. I could hit F4, but it will lock the range. I could hit Control Backspace. That will take me back to the top without locking. And then I hit comma. Okay, what's the K? What's the order? So I'm selecting cell D3, and when I close the bracket and hit enter, the large function was able to extract the second largest number in this list. But I would like to create a dynamic label, and I want to say, like in this example, the student who got the second highest score is, the student who got the third highest score is. So I'm going to create that by creating a very simple function. I would like to create a dynamic label in cell D1 that says the student who got the second highest score is, and when I change it, I want it to become the third highest score or the fourth highest score or whatever. In other terms, I would like to create a dynamic label by joining different paths using the joining operator of Excel. And I'll need to use a VLookup function, because when I type 2, I don't want to see 2 in the label, I want to see the second. And when I type 5, I want to see the fifth in my label. That's why I prepared for my VLookup function, and I created a list, a table array, but I have it in white, so I'm going to reveal it by changing the color to black, and now I'm ready to create my dynamic label. My label starts by typing an equal sign, and I say in double quotes, the student who got, and a space, and then I close the double quotation and I want to join it. And to join it, I'm going to use a joining operator of Excel, Shift 7 on my keyboard, and then I would like to convert whatever number I have in D3, I have to convert it to whatever corresponds to that number from column N in my table array. So I'll be using a VLookup function. So I type VLookup, and then I hit Tab. What's your lookup value? Well, my lookup value is whatever comes from cell D3, and then I want to look for it in the leftmost column of my table array, so I type a comma, and then I go to the table array, select the entire table, and then I could lock it, but I'm not copying the function, so I'm going to type a comma, and I say, from which column you want to extract the return value. I'm looking for this number coming from cell D3. I look for it in column M, but I would like to extract a return value from the second column, column N. So I'm going to type 2, which corresponds to column 2 in the table array. And finally, the last argument, are you looking at an exact match or an approximate match? I'm searching by these numbers and I want the same exact number, so I'm looking at an exact match. So I select false. I could type 0. And then when I close the bracket, let me look at my function. What does it say at this point? So if I hit enter, it says the student who got second. I want to modify. I need to add a little text as well. So I put my function in the edit mode. I hit F2. The student who got the, I type the inside the double quotes and the space after the. Now let's look at it. It looks better. The student who got the second. And then I want to continue typing, so I select the same text, I put it in the edit mode one more time, and to the end I'll be joining it to another string of text, so I type and in double quotation, the student who got the second, and then a space, highest score is, and then I close the double quotation. Now I created a dynamic label, the student who got the second highest score is, and then this label is dynamic, so if I change the 2, I type a 3, and then I hit enter. Well, my large function updates, and the label in cell D1 updates as well, and that's wonderful. What I need to do next is to extract the name of that student. I'll be extracting the name of this student from my list of student names and scores by using a combination of functions. So first of all, let me extract the score. What we did using the large function will be a part of nested function that I'll be creating in cell I1. We start by extracting the score equal large. That's the same exact function we created before. I want to extract the large from this entire range. Shift Control down arrow to expand the range. Control backspace to jump back to the top. If you wish to jump back to the top while locking the range, then you can hit the F4 key. I don't need to lock because I'm not copying. I hit comma, and then I need to specify the K, and the K comes from cell D3. I select D3 and I close the bracket and hit enter, and that's the third highest score in the entire list. Actually, I don't need the third highest score because my final goal is to extract the name. So I need the order of this number 92.8 in the entire list. If you look at the entire list, then 7.8, that's the first number. 13.5, that's in position number 2, and so on and so on. So what's the order of 92.8? Which row number in this? I'm not looking at the built-in row numbers, but I want to find in which row in my source table. And to do this, I'll be using a match function. So the large function will be a part of my match function. To make it easy for you to understand, I'm going to cut it by selecting the large function and hit Ctrl X on my keyboard, and I start creating right away my match function. So I type equal match and then I hit tab. What's your lookup value? What are you looking for in this entire column of numbers? Well, I'm looking for whatever the large function is returning. So if I hit Ctrl V and then I hit comma, it asks me, well, where is your lookup array? My lookup array is in this entire list. So I select the first number and then I hit Shift Control down arrow and then Control backspace to jump back to the top. Finally, I'm still in the match function. The last argument of the match function, are you looking at an exact match less than or greater than? I hit 0, which corresponds to exact match, and close the bracket. And look what happens. It will be returning the order of this number in the entire column of scores. So when I hit enter, it says this number is at position 41 in this entire range. This position, this row number, will be an argument inside an index function, because the index function is the one that will be returning the name. The names are in column A. I want to specify the array from which I'll be grabbing the name which is in column A, and I want to grab the name in position 41. Let's cut all this part by putting it in the edit mode F2. And I'll be cutting all this part, the match function, together with the large function, Control X. I could type it right away, but you know what? I'm trying to make it simple for you to follow along, and I start typing my index function. What is the index function doing? The index function will look at an entire column, at an array. Look at the screen if it says an array. I want the first value, and then Shift Control down arrow, and then Control backspace to jump back to the top, and then I hit comma. It asks me for a row number. In this entire range from A2 to A46, from which row would you like to extract? It asks me for the row number, and the row number is what I extracted already by using the combination of the match and large function. So if I paste it here, Control V, and then close the bracket for the index function. When I close the bracket for the index function, because we have lots of brackets, there is a rule which says the last bracket is always black in color, and the last bracket will appear bold on screen for a second before it turns back to regular. Now I created my index function, and the student who got the third highest score is Tang. Everything is dynamic. Let's test. So if I change this one to 4, and then when I hit enter, look at this. My VLookup function is extracting the position, the 4th position, the 5th position from this table array, and then the combination of my index, match, and large are extracting the name from the list. We need to make it a lot more visual, and to do this, I'll be creating a conditional formatting. To create a conditional formatting, I need to select the entire range. I'm selecting the top two values, Shift Control down arrow to select the entire range. And from the perspective of this active cell, the cell different in color, I'll be creating my conditional formatting rule. This rule is simple. It will travel in memory for each individual cell, and when it travels in memory, it will ask the same question. If this number in column B is the third highest or the fourth highest or whatever we have here in cell D3, well, I'm going to do that by creating my rule using the large function. So if I click on the down arrow for conditional formatting, I go down to new rule, and for the new rule, I want to use a formula, so I click on use formula, and I'll be creating my rule. From the perspective of this active cell, what are you evaluating? Are you evaluating this cell, A2? Definitely not. I have to look at the score that corresponds to that name. So if I click on cell B2, I have to consider that this rule is traveling in memory, and it will be always looking at a number from column B. So what do I need to do? I need to hit the F4 key twice so that B is locked while the 2 is not locked. I see the $sign in front of the B but not in front of the 2. Then I type, is it equal to the large? And then I open bracket. large of this entire range starting from B2 going down, shift control down arrow, and then this one is locked by default, keep it that way, and then I hit comma. We know that the large function is expecting a k argument, and the k argument is always coming from cell D3, so I close the bracket. That will be my rule. Whenever this condition is met, whenever B2 is equal to the fourth large number in this entire range, what would you like to do? Well, I would like to apply a formatting. I click on Format, and then I go to the Fill tab of Format. I can create a very simple format by just changing the fill color. You can do whatever you want. And then when I hit OK and another OK, so this value, the fourth highest value, should be highlighted when I look at my list, and here is the name and here is the number. They are highlighted, and that corresponds to the name in cell I2. Now that we finished the most important parts of this project, we want to make it a lot more practical and a lot more interesting. And to do this, I'm not going to type the number every time. I don't need to see the table array anymore, so I select it and then change its color and I make it white. I don't need this large function that I created for demonstration at the beginning. I can select it and then delete. I can highlight cell I1 and bold my text, or even bump it up. That's the name of the student. You can change its color as well. That's another option. And then I can bold my text in cell D1, and now everything looks nice. The only problem that I have so far is that I have to type the number in cell D3, and instead of typing the number, I'm going to insert a control, and this control will be a spin button that will increase or decrease the number automatically. So let's see how we insert this control. To insert this control, I need to bring the developer tab. I already have the developer tab. If you don't have it, then let me tell you how to bring it very easily. You just right click on any one of the tabs, click on customize the ribbon, and when you click on customize the ribbon, you check the box for developer and it will be added. In my case, it's already checked, so I hit OK. Once you bring the developer tab to the ribbon, all what you need to do to insert a control is to click on the down arrow for insert in the controls group. And here we have a wide variety of controls. The one I'm looking for is a spin button, and here is the spin button. When I click on it, my mouse pointer changes to a crosshair, a little plus sign, so I'm going to click and drag to create my spin button. This spin button is not functioning so far. What I need to do is that I add a functionality, so when I click on the up pointing arrow, it increases. When I click on the down pointing arrow, it decreases. And at the same time, I want to link it to cell D3, so it changes the contents of cell D3. We do all that by going to the properties. So if I click on properties, it opens this dialog box. And it asks me a few questions. What's the minimum value you want in this spin button? Well, the minimum value will be 1. What's the maximum value you want for this spin button? Let's make it 15. That's the highest number I created in my table array that supplies the VLookup function. And finally, I want to increment by 1, and I want to link. Which cell would you like to link? I want to link to cell D3, and we are done. When I hit OK, now if I click outside, look at this, it says 1, and here the label changes to first, and here it extracts the name Lakes, which corresponds to the student who got the highest score. I can change it by using the spin button up and down. So if I click on the up pointing arrow, I'm switching to the second highest value, and the student who got the second highest score is Hum. I can change that as well. Now let's improve the appearance even more. I can improve the appearance by hiding cell D3. So when I select cell D3, I can go to the Home tab, and I hide it simply by changing the color of the font. I can make it white. I want to move the control, my spin button, on top of cell D3, so no one will be changing D3 accidentally. And to do this, I cannot click on the spin button anymore, because if I click, I'll be changing. Look at this. If I click, I'll change to fourth, to fifth. But I want to select it to move it. And to do this, I press the control key. And when I press control, I'm able to select it. I'm able to move it wherever I want. So I moved my control in the proper position, hiding cell D3. And now I'm controlling everything simply by using the spin button. And the student who got the 6th highest score is Kim. The student who got the 7th highest score, the 8th, and so on. Now this is the student who got the 9th highest score, Bautista. Let's have a look. The name is highlighted in the list due to the conditional formatting rule in which we use the large function, and my label is dynamic because I combined it with a VLookup function, and I am able as well in cell I1 to extract the name of that student. If you enjoyed this training video, like, comment, share and subscribe to be notified when new videos are released. Thank you for watching and see you in our next tutorial.